This is TWiT.
So Linux kernel developers once again are debating how they should handle code created with the help of artificial intelligence. This time, they may eliminate a requirement to identify AI assistants altogether. The current policy says that when an AI tool contributes to a kernel patch, the developer should add a quote, assisted by tag, identifying the agent, the model version, and any additional analysis tools that were used. But Christian Brunner recently questioned whether the Linux kernel's permanent Git history should effectively become a free advertising spot for proprietary AI companies. He proposed simplifying the tag to something generic, such as assisted by LLM, without naming the company or model. Jeff Layton went even further and proposed eliminating the requirement altogether. His argument is that the rule is not followed consistently, the resulting information is unreliable, and nobody has clearly explained what useful purpose collecting it actually serves. We don't require developers to list every search engine, documentation site, compiler, or static analyzer, or Stack Overflow answer that helped them create a patch. AI should not receive its own scarlet letter simply because some members of the open source community dislike that technology. What matters is the quality of the code. The human submitting the patch must review it still and understand it, verify that it works, ensure that it compiles with the kernel's or complies with the kernel's licensing requirements, and accept all responsibility for it. AI cannot add the legally meaningful sign-off by tag. That responsibility remains with the developer. Submitting untested AI-generated garbage is irresponsible, but so is submitting untested human-generated garbage. The problem is not the tool. The problem is developers submitting code they don't understand. AI can help explain unfamiliar code, identify bugs, suggest fixes, improve documentation, and find vulnerabilities that might otherwise remain hidden. Rejecting those benefits because of ideological opposition to AI would only make Linux development slower and potentially leave real security problems unfixed. Judge the patch, test the code, hold the human developer accountable. But stop treating the use of AI as though it is something that must be confessed in every commit, which is exactly what I have been saying all along. It's almost like maybe they listen to the show, or maybe I've just been spewing common sense and everyone else is finally catching up. I don't know, but this makes sense to me. What's the point?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of interesting thoughts here. One is that, and this was something I had never thought of. I hadn't really thought a whole lot about it, but the result of AI is not copyrightable. What AI writes, you cannot copyright. And I had a conversation with a guy on a flight here recently who was coming back from a Comic-Con style event in Oklahoma. I happened to fly out at the same time he was, and he wrote for one of the larger comic book companies. And I'm like, hey, this is something that's impacting my industry. I'm curious what you guys are doing about it. Do you use AI anywhere in your toolpath? He's like, no, my boss set us all down and told us we're not allowed to. I'm like, oh, and why was that? Because we can't copyright it. And copyright is a really big deal for these content creators because they're making comic books and they don't want people to be able to go and copy them. So there, and all that to say that like there is the potential for some copyright and licensing issues to sort of hinge on whether a particular pull request was written by a machine and therefore sort of in the public domain by default, or by a real person and therefore copyright and liable or subject to the GPL and all of those things. And so that's one thing that comes to mind. Another is that obviously they were looking for a way to kind of flag these potentially low quality contributions. But I think it's worth pointing out that, like, and this is true in a lot of different areas, but like the people that would be willing to tag their contributions are the ones that you probably don't have to worry about. That's an interesting observation you can make in a lot of different areas in life. And then the one other thing that comes to mind, this is sort of theoretical at this point, but like you could imagine that at some point in the future you would go, like there would just sort of become an awareness that, oh, that one version of Claude or, you know, ChatGPT 4.3, it tended to make this mistake. And so then it might be useful to go back and grep and sort of review all of the patches that, let's say, ChatGPT 4.3 was involved in to see if it made that mistake in any of them. So like I can see there's probably a few instances where it could be useful, but on the whole, it's not that useful in metadata. So I could go either way. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought about the copyright stuff. And yeah, I kind of knew that already. I'm reading some things about it right now. One little snippet I see here is like AI generated code as a standalone work you can't copyright. However, if the AI generated code is incorporated into a larger project, it may be protected under copyright laws.
Sure.
So there's probably some nuance and a lot of weirdness here that I think is going to need to be refined in the legal system in the future. Because
well, Ken mentioned during the break, I had the conversation with Tris on Floss Weekly a week or two ago, and he is a lawyer in the UK, and he does like the law firm that he is with, they specifically do technology, and he in particular does technology cases, so he's fairly familiar with the way all of these things work. And we talked about this with him, and his basic comment was the laws that we're using to try to decide this stuff was all written like in the 1980s, before even the internet was really a common thing. And so, of course, we're having problems trying to reconcile it. But, that's one of those things that, like, well, you try to update the laws and you're just immediately you have this huge political partisan fight on your hand, which, that's no fun. Nobody wants that. And that just sort of makes it difficult to get the common sense things done that need to be done. So anyway, yeah, people are teasing us in the comments that this week in patent law. Well, I mean, the open source literally is all about licensing. Open source is literally a way to license copyrightable material. So
open source is a copyright
freely licensed open source.
Yeah. Depending upon what you mean by free.
Yeah.
Or freely.
If you enjoyed this clip, be sure to check out the Untitled Linux Show. You can find us in your favorite podcasting app or subscribe to our YouTube channel down in the links below. See you there.